the political economy of our field with the arts, because it is, I think you were speaking about it being an object and not an object, because of what we call the intangibility, the shareability, the non-consumability of the arts. It makes it requiring funding, and it cannot survive from its own funding. And as a result, and that's why it became a public good, and as a result, the people who will provide funding, whether it's public funding or others, have a say in our field, and they ask us always to kind of prove that we're good to them, to those who have the money. And in order, and this is becoming also a proof of the fact that we have a lot of impact. I don't know how Mexico lives the Day of the Dead. And this ritual of grieving, of collective grieving, what does it bring to the people? But this edition of Dream City felt as if we were all kind of opening a wound and looking at it and trying to understand and to feel this intensity of loss. One of the works I saw was done by two Tunisian artists, young artists, looking at the scars of torture. We entered into like a jail, like a prison, and stayed there and listened to the voice of a person who was tortured. The other work was was a theater performance by Jalila Bakkar, one of the leading women playwrights in the region, in the Arab region and in Tunis. But it was directed by her young daughter, and you feel her pain on stage, lamenting the end and the loss of a project of her generation, just the generation born in the 50s, the leftists and the intellectuals of that time who did not see the fruits of their work. And two films from Syria, one telling the story of Yarmouk, a Palestinian refugee camp that was destroyed, and the other film telling the story of 3 men who took part in the uprising but ended up in Europe, and the feelings of exile and also loss.
With the massive growth of digital media and internet-based tools, and especially with how this is being dominated and directed by sort of big brothers everywhere, big corporations, how is this posing a challenge for independent artists? How can independent artistic expression find its way in a digital world that is dominated by huge powers?
When the organization started as a traveling film festival, we would show documentaries in different communities where we were showing a lot of times the tragedies, the struggles of communities outside of Mexico, right? Or maybe the challenges facing violence in Ciudad Juárez or very isolated places of Mexico. This was in 2006, but 17 years later, we are showing documentaries about Mexican realities in communities profoundly affected by violence. Every time we show a documentary, someone in the audience has a family member that has been disappeared, that has been killed, that has been tortured. There are sometimes the children of journalists, a lot of them who have been murdered, Mexico being now officially the country where it is most dangerous to be a journalist. And so this reality of violence is inescapable in terms of when we talk about art, who is art directed to, what kind of trauma are audiences undergoing, what kind of mediation work we have to do with audiences. Critical to this context and to understanding this broader reality has been the rise in militarization in Mexico. And this is key to understanding the critical concerns of both the publics that galvanize around documentary, but also documentary filmmakers. And key to understanding the cuts in the arts, right? Just to provide a lens through which to understand how militarization has risen, causing, of course, hundreds and thousands of human rights violations, an increase in everyday violence in people's communities, but also to stress the fact that art is being severely defunded to fund the military. So next year, 2023, the military will have 492 million pesos every day to spend. This is double of what two main art programs cost a year. So every day you could fund two art programs, Jóvenes Creadores and Sistema Nacional de Creadores, for an entire year. So this is just not a budgetary issue, of course. This is the perpetuation of a security model that has largely failed the communities that it is supposed to serve.